I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Garden City Planning Commission. It's Thursday, December 14th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. First order of business will be pledge to allegiance to the flag. If everyone will stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Would the secretary take a roll call, please?
Chairperson May.
Here.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Here.
Commissioner Turnbull.
Here.
Commissioner Walls.
Here.
Commissioner Kalidas.
Here.
Commissioner King.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
We have a quorum of 7.
Okay, next order of business is approval of the agenda. If we could have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments or discussion?
Who was the second on that?
Hearing none, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Kalidas.
Aye.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye. Next is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting, October 12th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on October 12th, 2023.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments, corrections? Hearing none, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Kalidas.
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye. Next item is public comments on non-agenda items only. These are items that are not on our agenda for tonight. If anyone has or wishes to speak on an item not on the agenda, come forward, please, to the podium. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the first business item. This is PPL 23-0030, a request for a site plan approval to construct a new apartment building at the northeast corner of Arcola Avenue and Cherry Hill Road in the R3 Multiple Family Residential Zoning District. Mr. Ortega, would you start us off, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Tonight, this proposal involves a vacant lot that's actually approximately 18,000 square feet in area, and the applicant is proposing to construct an 8-unit, 2-story apartment building. We reviewed the site plan submitted. You have our review letter, and I'm just going to go over some highlights of our information. Number one just being that there is a need for the applicant to clear up some eliminate, I should say, some inconsistencies on the site plan with regards to some notations. We'd also like to see the digital plans submitted that are signed and sealed by professionals. They have been prepared, but it's just to make sure that all the plans are stamped and sealed accordingly. So that's more of a housekeeping situation. We looked at the dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance with regards to this proposed building location. The site does meet the minimum lot size requirements, the maximum building height, and does not exceed that. It meets the front yard setback requirements for the building and the rear yard setback requirements as well. One issue, the first issue here is regard to the fact that our side yard setback requirement is a 20-foot minimum, and the applicant is proposing a 17-foot setback from the east property line. In this case, that's his one side lot line. So rather than 20, it's 17. That requires a 3-foot variance. So the applicant would have to obtain a 3-foot variance from that side lot setback as a condition of site plan approval. So as we go forward, there are a couple other variances we'll go through, and basically the issue would be you would, if at some point the site plan meets the conditions of approval, and if you granted it, it would be conditioned on the applicant then moving on to the ZBA to attempt to receive the variances from them. So the first one being the side yard setback. And for those of you might be familiar, remember this site, the applicant did come to, was originally, the site had multiple zoning designations, and the site did get rezoned, so the entire thing is now multifamily residential. Then the applicant did have some concept drawings for a plan, and initially, we did go to the ZBA with that. The main issue there was that the building itself was pushed up against that east lot line, and there was 0 to 1 foot setback. The main problem with that was the fact that there's a Detroit Edison service line that runs along that eastern property line. The applicant did go to DTE to talk to them about what was appropriate, and they gave him a specific dimension, and this site plan, as submitted, does comply with DTE's requirements for separation from that utility overhead. So the DTE utility line issue, the applicant has indicated, is addressed. We would like to make sure to have communication from DTE as a condition of approval as well, to make sure that they are, that the building location complies with their standards for setbacks as well. But we do believe that's appropriate, because generally speaking, DTE requires a 15-foot easement, and that's about 7.5 feet on each side of a utility line. But when it comes to our zoning ordinance, the first one is a side yard setback issue. The second dimensional issue is the fact that based on the minimum lot areas that we require, this site would be permitted 7 dwelling units, and the applicant is proposing 8. Just based on the building configuration, they feel that they need 8 units. So in order for them to have 8 units, they would have, in this case, have to go to the ZBA for a variance from that minimum lot area standard. So that's the second variance.
Excuse me, Mark, just
Absolutely, yeah. if
follow
you-
up on that one. Is that a square footage zoning requirement?
Yes, so what it is the zoning ordinance controls density by stating that for any multifamily building, they first have to have 3,000 square feet of lot area for their first dwelling unit, and then 2,500 square feet of lot area for each additional unit. So at an 18,000 square foot lot, like this one, you subtract out 3,000 for the first unit, so that's 1 unit. You have 15,000 square feet remaining, divide that by 2,500, and then you get your other 6 units. So permitted by right are 7 units. The applicant is requesting 8. And that's just, they choose to, they believe they need 8 units, so they'd like to try and get that eighth unit. And in order to do that, they would have to go to the ZBA. So then moving on, when it comes to the building design, elevations have been provided. They do indicate that it appears that they would be utilizing masonry around a majority of the building, and then they're also going to have bay windows along the west elevation, or the elevation fronting Arcola. The only issue is when it comes to the drawings, they're missing some labels in terms of the actual official color and material for each of the facade elements. The notation of the actual elevation, like north, south, east, and west, is a little bit out of order, and there are a couple other things. So we recommend that the applicant submit revised elevations, correct these inconsistencies, provide detailed information about the material types and colors for the building. And there's also some inconsistencies, like, for example, the floor plan proposes doors on the front and rear of the building. However, the elevations only show a door on the front. So these inconsistencies need to be cleared up to determine that. One other thing is that obviously masonry can create a very attractive building. However, based on the proposed elevations initially, some of the Arcola elevation is kind of a little bit bland in terms of its architectural detail. So we're just asking the applicant if they would consider including some additional architectural details, like some kind of small variations in the window and the wall elevations, some maybe different colors, or even something as simple as changing some of the brick orientation from a regular row and header to like adding some soldier courses along the windows and that sort of thing. So those kind of subtle things could make the building a lot more attractive. So we're just asking the applicant if they can consider that, and if the Planning Commission wants to give him direction about how you feel the facade of the building, what the appearance is. Moving on to parking standards, They do meet the minimum requirement for off-street parking and for guest parking and for ADA parking spaces. They meet those standards. One issue, though, is the fact that our zoning ordinance requires that parking lots for multifamily buildings be located in the side or rear of the building. The applicant has chosen to put them in the front of the building, and this is, it appears that the reason for this also is twofold. If the applicant were to turn it around, basically, and have the building be fronting on Arcola with a yard, then they have to meet a 30-foot setback from Arcola to meet the front yard requirement. When you have the lot itself is 100 feet, yeah, 100 feet deep. So by the time you have your 30-foot front yard off of Arcola, the 28-foot-ish width of the building, from the rear of the building to that eastern property line is not a lot of, there isn't enough space to provide the parking that is necessary for the building. So the only alternative would be to shift the building closer to Arcola, and then he'd be requesting a front yard setback for the building itself. So instead of being 30 feet away, most likely he'd be, well, in this case, he'd be 17 feet away from the from Arcola. So with this configuration, he's in need of two variances, one from the rear yard, or the side yard, 17 foot, and the fact that the parking is in the front. In theory, just to point this out, that if the building was turned around with the parking, he would no longer need the side yard elevation, and then the variance, excuse me, but then he would need a 17-foot, 13-foot variance from the 30-foot requirement of the, for the building placement. So it's, and he chose to go in this route of this configuration. So I don't know if the Planning Commission wants to have an opinion on that. I mean, one aspect of this configuration is then, you know, you're going to have your 17-foot setback from the rear, or that, I should say, east elevation, east property line that's shared with Wendy's. But it's basically going to be kind of almost like a dead zone. It's going to be a yard. It'll be a space there, but it won't be any activeness. The alternative is if the building is fronting on Arcola, then the parking would function. The parking would be behind the building. It'd be shielded from the residents, the resident and the business across the street. But then the building itself, the two-story building, is 17 feet away from the property line. It's a matter of which appearance you feel on Arcola is more appropriate. The applicant feels that this is more appropriate to have the parking there, but that's up to you too, and if you might want to give his opinion on that. So then moving on from that situation, in terms of landscaping, they have provided some details. They have provided locations, but we note that some of the material quantities aren't accurate. So we're requiring that the applicant submit a revised separate landscape plan sheet that has all the information on it. It has all the parking, excuse me, it has all the landscape locations, the material locations, the plant sheet, plant materials index sheet that shows the quantity, the species, and the sizes for all the plantings. Also providing, the applicant needs to provide landscaping along the Arcola frontage. Right now, the plan doesn't show that. It shows landscaping along the north property line with the adjacent apartments, and the south along Cherry Hill, but they need additional landscaping along Arcola. So we're requesting a revised landscape plan. We're also going to be needing, the applicant has not submitted a lighting plan, so they need to submit a photometric plan about the details of how the parking lot will be lit. When it comes to dumpster enclosure, the construction details themselves are in compliance with the ordinance. The applicant is proposing to have the dumpster on the northern edge of the parking lot. Based on this location, the dumpster would be between the building and the Arcola street frontage. The ordinance does require that dumpsters be located to the side or rear of buildings, at least 10 feet away from the building. Looking at this proposed configuration, the applicant actually could turn the dumpster enclosure, put it next to the building, 10 feet away from the proposed apartments, it would still be at least 10 feet away from the apartments to the north, and it would then be in compliance with the standard. So the applicant can choose to apply for a variance for the proposed location that's on your site plan, or the applicant can move the dumpster to that location to be consistent with that. Then he would no longer need an extra variance, he would just need the 3 variances we mentioned and not this 4th variance for a parking, or a dumpster location. But as proposed on the sheet right now, there is a variance required for that. There's some other there's some other details that need to be adjusted. For example, the elevations show mechanical equipment on the top of the building. It doesn't show the screening for that. We do require that information to be screened, so the elevations need to be revised to provide that screening. And then there's some details about the sidewalks that need to be revised to make sure they're all 5 feet wide. So in the end, this would be a brand-new apartment building, provide another housing option for residents, for new residents to the city. And the applicant has gone through and attempted to minimize the amount of variances needed for the site, given the size of the site and the constraints. They have attempted to do that. However, they still need at a minimum, based on this site plan in front of you, at least 4 variances, possibly 3. So if the planning commission can either have the applicant return with a revised plan, or if you feel these items can be addressed administratively, you could grant approval contingent upon, 1, the applicant receiving required variances, and then 2, we're submitting revised plans that address these 5, mainly it's 5 issues in terms of the site plan itself that need to be addressed. So that's the summary of this issue right now. I can take any questions you have with regards to this, and the applicant has provided a representative here to answer your questions.
Okay, well, why don't we move on and hear from the applicant? If you wish to come up and present your plan to us and introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ali Khalaf. I'm from AK Architecture. I'm presenting the owner of the property. So thank you so much, Mr. Mario, for the great presentation. So we have been here before last year, and we tried to change a lot of stuff that based on your comments and Mario's comment as well. So we went down from, was 16 unit to 8 units. I know it's supposed to be 7, but we're trying to get the extra one as a variance. And for the dumpster location here, it should be 10 feet away. The code says 10 feet away from the building. But if we want to make it 10 feet away from the building, we're going to lose 2 parking spots or 1 parking spot. So we're not going to meet the parking requirements. And for the east setbacks, side setback, we have been in a discussion with the DTE people about the setback, and they gave us the minimum of 7.5 feet, and the city requires 20 feet. So we went, the most we can go is 17 feet away from the east side of the building. And I think that's it. And yeah, we're ready to, of course, as Mr. Mario presented, we have a couple minor changes and stuff that we have to fix in the site plan and elevations, and that's doable for sure.
Okay, well, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
If you have nothing else, have a seat, and we may have a question for you later.
Of course, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the Planning Commission discussion. I guess I'll start it off just by saying, I think the site plan has several inaccuracies, inconsistencies, and several areas that are not in compliance with our zoning ordinance. So I would recommend that the applicant be given time to revise it and bring it into compliance with the ordinance and clean up all of the inaccuracies and inconsistencies and come back at a later date, and that we table it right now. That's my feeling about it. Let me turn it over to the commission and Mr. Steenberg.
I concur with that, and I would also add that along with Mario, I'd like to see the building have some definition. There's nothing that stands out on this. It's a square with bricks. There's no prominent features, architectural features here to make the building an asset to that area, I believe. That's all.
Any other comments from,
I feel the way he presented it as planned is probably the best way it can be situated on the property to get the maximum use that he can get out of it. I would hope the DDA would give him a variance for the 8 units because a building of this size and the way it's structured, 7 units, there'd be wasted space in the building. The only thing I think that we would need to address on this, I would, if I was the applicant, I would absolutely apply for the variance for the dumpster. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to get in and out of there with the garbage truck. The only thing I see, as far as the architecture of the building, every building around there right now is just square bricks. So, I mean, we can't ask him to put in something too much that's not gonna go with what is in the area. There's a doctor's office there, there's Wendy's there, a dental thing, I believe. So the only thing I would like to see him address is the landscape, what he's gonna do for the house to the, the north end of the landscape, and the lighting should probably be all downward lighting and not pointed near the residents at all.
okay?
That's it.
Anyone else? Comments?
Could we just quickly run through the variances again? Dumpster, the 8 versus...
So, yeah, number 1 would be the 3-foot setback from the east property line. Number 2, 8 units instead of 7. Number 3, the fact that the parking lot is in the front yard of Arcola. So those are the 3, and then the 4th would be for the dumpster location.
Dumpster location, yeah.
Yeah.
Is he good with the amount of parking per se if it goes with 8 rather than 7?
Yeah, yeah, as proposed, the parking for 8 units is 19, including including residents and guests.
Guests and
So they need 19 spaces total for 8 units, and he has 19. And then one thing in terms of the dumpster enclosure, the other reason we were thinking that might be best to shift the location is because right now, even though it would be 20-plus feet, I think, 25 feet away from the property line, so most likely 30 feet away from the multifamily, the duplex to the north. It's technically still in the front yard of that duplex to the north. The idea I just had was that if it was shifted to be between the current position of the apartment building proposed and the property line to the north, it could be 10 feet away from the the new apartment building, so it would meet that standard. You keep it in line with the, like you said, it's in that yard next to it. It would require more asphalt in the parking lot that would not be for parking, but it would be for the access aisle for a dump truck to turn, like drive northbound, turn to the east, pick it up, and then back up, and then do a T movement out. And then in that case, he wouldn't need a variance for that, but that's the only suggestion. In the end, the applicant makes their choices as to which ones they'd like to apply for, and they can do it. But I do agree that any location for the dumpster has to function for pickup for a truck. And then, I think in this case, if it was shifted, then the dumpster would be out of the front yard of the residence to the north. But once again, it still would be 30 feet away from that residence, and it would be screened by landscaping, so its impact might be minimal. But in the end, the applicant is the one that chooses what they want to apply for.
Other comments or questions? Okay, well, hearing no more comments, do we have a motion?
One more comment. I think the site plan is too deficient to move forward. I'd like to make a motion to table.
Second.
Motion's to table and seconded. Any comments or discussion on the motion? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull, Commissioner Williams, Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Cletus,
Aye.
Commissioner Walls,
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, this will give you time to get together with Mr. Ortega and correct the deficiencies in the site plan and try to come more in compliance with the ordinance. Thank you. And when you get that all done, then we can reschedule you for another meeting. Yes.
I'd like to mention tomorrow to make a note of the landscaping along with the other 5 points there to get something more significant
Oh, yeah.
needed along Arcola and whatnot.
If the dumpster enclosure's gonna stay there, they require landscaping around it also to screen it.
Okay?
Okay, next item. Proposed city-initiated rezonings, Merriman, Cherry Hill, and Inkster Road. This is discussion on proposed rezoning of lots due to elimination of O1 Office District. We can go ahead and have the discussion. You want to first run through this, Mr. Ortega, and bring us up to date?
Yep. So as you recall, but some of your members might recall that the master plan does require, does have a proposed action plan, and one of those is simplifying the zoning ordinance by eliminating some of the zoning districts. So we did go through and propose the elimination of the O1 office district, and so with that elimination, we do need to rezone those properties that are zoned O1 to something new. So we had a brief discussion about this a little while ago, and then I started to do some additional research. I just wanted to make sure when it comes to city-initiated rezonings, if there was any other way that we can do this, because there's a good amount of O1 sites, and I thought there was a way in which we could just do it one fell swoop together, but basically that's not permitted. So basically we have to go through and do them individually. So I've broken them down into several bite-sized chunks, I believe, this being the first one. And mainly what it is that with the elimination of the O1, generally we can go to C1, local business, because everything that is and was permitted in the O1 district is allowed in the C1. So, and basically this rezoning and this action of moving forward with the master plan will give property owners additional opportunities for leases and in their spaces. So in case they were vacant, they'd have more options. And then also too, the local businesses, generally speaking, would still be compatible with the adjacent residents that might be in close proximity to these sites. So basically, I just started over on the west side of town, looking at Merriman, and these properties. The first one being at 6985 is a therapeutic location, and going from O1, the proposal is for that site to go to C2, because there's a vacant site adjacent to it at the corner of Bridge and Merriman that's already zoned C2. And then also to the north of this particular site at James is the Merriman Drive-In, and that's zone C3. So this C2 designation would be actually a good transition in this place. And then there's also the possibility that having that whole block as C2, maybe the entire block could be redeveloped for something with a C2 use. So that's the proposal for that. Moving down, going south on Merriman to Cambridge, you have the Amazing Dental office, and then you also have the Model A Restorers Club office. So they're currently zoned O1. The proposal is to rezone those to C1. And also taking the opportunity to fix some inconsistencies with the zoning ordinance, the zoning map, I should say. So going further south on Merriman Road, right at Balmoral, there are actually two single-family homes. They're single-family homes. It appears like they've always been that way. For some reason, they're zoned office. So so the proposal would be to rezone those to R1 residential. So that way, then, the homes would be permitted by right in their district. They would have no problems with like refinancing or doing an addition to the single-family home. And so that would be...
Surrounding properties are also residential.
Correct, exactly. And the surrounding properties are residential. It's directly to the north of the Straight Farmhouse, but at the same time, that's residential as it is. I mean, with the community historic sites and structures designation, but it's all compatible with the single family. So those are the sites on Merriman, and then, and feel free to jump, let me know if there's any issues with these. But then we just tried to shift over to Cherry Hill. Starting at Cherry Hill and Henry Ruff, there is an existing two-tenant building with a dentist office, and in the recent past, it was a health clinic. I don't think it wasn't urgent care, but it's health clinic. So that would be proposed to go to C1 as well, local business. Then traveling eastbound on Cherry Hill, going over to Caldwell, there is another dental office that is proposed for C1. And then as we go eastbound on Cherry Hill, we go to the corner intersection with Inkster. At this point, I was hoping to correct some mapping inconsistencies. The Wendy's property, the entire site, has two different designations. It's got a multifamily designation to the rear and the front, and so the C3 designation for the rest of the site. So it's another one. It's mainly what happened was, back in the day, the lots were smaller, and they were zoned more specifically for like the individual buildings that were there. And this is one of the reasons why the previous applicant at Arcola and Cherry Hill, they had lots that were only about, like 50 feet off of Cherry Hill that were zoned commercial for some reason, and the back was zoned residential, or multifamily. It's just a quirk of the old plat map. The zoning, the plat maps were changed, I mean, the lots were changed, they were combined to make bigger sites for bigger development opportunities, but then the zoning never caught up, the zoning map was never corrected for that. So we've already corrected the Arcola and Cherry Hill site. So this is proposing just to fix this little mapping error with the Wendy's and make their entire site C3, which permits drive-through restaurants. And then actually it would help their situation because they're actually proposing, actually right now applying for a permit to refurbish that building. There, as you might notice, a lot of drive-through fast food restaurants are refurbishing the old styles. So they're proposing to refurbish it. It's not going to be in any addition. They'll basically take out that old school, I don't know, salon, or we had to have those curved windows. You know how Wendy's used to have those curved windows there, a little area. They take those out and refurbish the windows to be a little bit more modern. Get rid of the mansard type curved mansard roof thing and make it standard.
Is this the property just north of Wendy's?
No, well, this is Wendy's. The first property is Wendy's, but then the second correction would be that property just north of Wendy's. It's a florist right now, and they have their parking lot. They have a little stub of their parking lot that goes on the west side that for some reason is zoned multifamily as well.
Okay.
I think that's because back in the day, once again, the alley, there was a platted alley there for some reason, and so the zoning went to multifamily. it's just a little part of their parking lot. In the end, it probably wouldn't impact their development, because the chances of them doing, I mean, in theory, they might want to do an addition to the rear of their building, and so technically, if we didn't change the zoning, technically it couldn't be commercial to the rear. So this is, once again, it's more of a mapping error from the past we're just trying to correct. So in this particular case, the rest of the florist would be rezoned to C3 as well. So it's more about cleaning up the map there. So those are just these initial proposed recommendations. If you feel it's appropriate, since this is a city-initiated rezoning, there's no cost to the property owners. I have been in contact with all except two. I've been playing phone tag with one of the property owners, and the other I've spoken to their relatives, but not the official property owner. But all of the other property owners are in agreement with these proposed changes to their zoning. So there's no cost to the applicants. They would not have to attend the meeting if they don't want to. But if you feel these are appropriate, because we do have to change them to something that's on our books. So, so we can discuss different changes, or if you feel these are appropriate, you can just have a motion to schedule the public hearings. We can have the public hearings next month, and then it would be completed by council in January.
Any discussion?
They all look good to me.
No? No discussion? It would seem appropriate to just schedule a public meeting then, so if someone wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, discussion on the motion? Hearing none, would you take the roll, please?
Right, yep. And so this is just, the public hearing will be Thursday, January 11th is the date for that one. Commissioner Walls?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalidas?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Aye. Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull? Aye. Commissioner Steenberg?
Aye.
Chairperson May?
Aye.
Approved 7-0.
Okay. Next, 2017 Master Plan 5-year review. This is continued discussion of the summary memo for the 5-year review of the city's 2017 Master Plan. Mr. Ortega, you want to tell us where we are at this point?
Yep. So, as mentioned, I did an initial pass at doing a 5-year review, looking at each individual section, pointing out some of the inconsistencies and some of the deficiencies, but also some of the benefits of the current plan. And it's an initial draft that I was hoping you could take a look at, that after you reviewed them, you could let us make a determination amongst yourselves what your opinion is of the master plan. Do you feel it's still working for you as it is right now? Or if you feel like maybe the deficiencies, for example, some of the most notable ones being like the fact that the data is old. But I mean, that just happens. It's based on 2010 zoning data. 2010 census data. So it is old. It's what happens as it goes. And the one thing I would say is that even though we've had the 2020 census, even now, some of the data is just coming out from that census. And it's not the greatest, mainly because it happened during the pandemic. So the accuracy of that data and what that'll say is not, it's just up in the air. Having said that, there are other data sources out there that could be done. For example, the census does a 5-year estimate of statistics for housing, demographics, employment, and those statistics come out every 5 years, and those are pretty accurate. So when it comes to the master plan, it's about if you feel what needs to happen. If the master plan is good as is, you should just keep on utilizing this current version as your guide for development. If you feel it should be supplemented with something new, and one of my suggestions would be if you feel some of the more pressing issues facing the city are impactful developments, things that could really change what's going on in the city, such as, for example, the Kmart site. If you wanted to do a sub-area plan for that, that's something that could be done. A sub-area plan in this case would be about evaluating the future land use designation of it, evaluating what we've always thought in the master plan and for a while, other master plans before that, having the pedestrian downtown character that you'd like to see, and then having more a detailed action plan as to what needs to be done. For example, the fact that some people think that, well, no, I should say that if you think that it might be necessary to have like greater than 2 stories, like maybe have a 3 or 4 story apartment building or a hotel or whatever on that site, the action plan would be take initiative or take preemptive action and change the zoning or standards to allow for that. That's something that's just an example. It's not a recommendation. It's just an example of what could happen in a sub-area plan. So that's one other way to go with this review. Or if you feel like it's just necessary to do a brand-new plan, you could suggest to the city council that we need to do a new master plan and it needs to be done. So those are your 3 options, and as the planning commission, you know, this one of your main roles is to decide how to move forward with the master plan in this particular instance.
Well, as far as the Kmart property goes, we can make proposals about how to develop that, but we have to be able to market that. And we haven't done much in that way as far as marketing is concerned. I think if we let it be known that we would be open to making changes in that area, perhaps through another method, rather than redoing the master plan for that, maybe a plan development type of thing would be more appropriate for that site. And give us the leeway to move in another direction. And with plan development, we could go to a taller building, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the other thing, is that absolutely right. If you wanted to focus on utilizing plan development, that's what it's there for. So that could be a tool that you already have that could see the development.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to do anything to change it, but as we talked about in the past, there are several other parts of that plan that some of us didn't like, and we would like to see them removed. I don't think it's necessary to redo the whole plan, but possibly we should be looking at amending it in some way. And if you think that a special section for the Kmart property would be more appropriate as a tool to develop that, then we could look at that too. But I think there is some areas that need amending. Other comments or questions? Steenberg.
Last month, I talked to the current mayor about the Kmart property and about the prospect of having it represented nationally.
Yeah.
And it was not something he could comment on at that particular time, but it seemed to be on his radar. So maybe in conjunction with what you just said, we officially pass along information to the council that we'd like to talk about the redevelopment of that property and what might be necessary in the way of zoning to accomplish what we'd like to see happen there.
Yeah, sure. I don't know, maybe there's someone who could provide us with a little more direction in that way as far as possible development, what's needed from us to do that.
So definitely, whether it's a sub-area plan specifically just for the Kmart site or the downtown, or you could have a sub-area plan for downtown, or, as you said, Fred, do an amendment to the master plan that includes that as a chapter in an amended plan. That's either ways you can go. And then a planning document would definitely could accomplish all those items in terms of, a sub-area plan would be a little bit more appropriate, or one of the more appropriate tools that you can use, because you could, in the planning process, have marketing and evaluations done, have real estate experts provide their opinions and analysis of what are the alternatives for the site currently based on the current, the only issue with that is that it would be based on the current economic fact conditions, as it is right now, but it's still much more updated and valid than anything else we've had. But, a plan could itemize those steps to move forward, such as, do an analysis from the market standpoint, do a feasibility study, but also, I would say also too, and you have some type of various public input, like from like a visioning session or some aspect. Sometimes you have these things called design charrettes, in which the city residents, property owners, stakeholders, they all come in and look at the design. Because while I know, there's always that balance of saying, all right, how much can we tell people that what we want them to do, but also the one benefit of that is like, then it gives people, the developers, confidence and assurance that, oh, this is what they want, and I can give that for them. And if it's based on market realities and based on good economics, then it could be something that's feasible. And
Would
then
it be beneficial to contact the current property owners to see
Yeah.
where they feel they could better market their property?
Absolutely, yeah, that's part of the aspects of it as well. Yeah, like include them in some kind of partnership, that's absolutely it. I mean, right now, it is for sale because the current property owner is LA Fitness. Now, whether LA Fitness, is in the business of doing other kinds of development, I don't know. Or if they're, it's been so long, I don't know if they're willing to come back.
Yeah, I don't know if they
But-
want to come back and do anything themselves either, but
Right.
I'm sure they'd like to sell it if they could,
Yeah.
since that they have
We would
a
like
sign
to-
on the property.
We would like to know if they've gotten any interest, and if they
Yeah,
have gotten
it's
interest,
possible that they've had
what it
interest and
was that stopped
they looked at the zoning and said, well, we can't fit this in there,
Right. And I think, I can tell you there's interest from the whole end of the spectrum. Well, I shouldn't say, a wide variety, I guess I should say. There are people that, they just want to do the most latest, I would say, quick trends. The latest quick trends are car washes. Everybody wants to do a car wash. The other latest is self-storage. They want to just build a warehouse so they can, have people store things on the site. So
And neither of
it's-
those
yeah.
things seem like something we want in downtown.
No. But then we do have others that are trying, but then they're just not sure how it wants to move forward in terms of density. Because I'll be honest, the other issue is some of our recent discussions we've had in terms of our master plan, or what the master plan says in terms of density. It scares off developers, because if they think they can't get, based on the land cost, because the land cost right now is very high. What they're asking for is pretty high. Between that and construction costs, the amount that needs to happen in terms of leasable square footage or for sale square footage is high. And they need to know that the city would be willing to accept that in order to do, and we just don't know, because I honestly don't know right at this point, like how dense it needs to be. And going through a planning exercise to figure that out, and then seeing if that's something that's acceptable to the community, I think is important, because if for some reason the economics work out that it's something that's just people aren't comfortable with, then that means we have to go in a different direction if the community decides they don't want to. But I'm sorry, Mike, I keep talking to him.
My thoughts when I talked to the mayor were twofold. We have the property, the former property for Kmart, and the property on the corner of Ford Road in Merriman. That has sat vacant way too long. There are ways to address that. There's talk in other cities currently going on about taxing vacant properties differently than occupied properties to move development, so that somebody can't just look at a property and affix a we'll call it an unreasonable price and let it sit there empty forever. That being said, the other part of what I talked to him about is when we look at the development of all of this, we got a lot of different ideas, but our reach up to this point has been totally local. Our DDA director was from Garden City, worked in Garden City, and I'm not sure how far the reach was there. If we were to put this out with a national marketing company on a per partial basis, not the whole city, but on a per partial basis, and put that with a national marketing company and say, we have this property here, we're looking for proposals. So if Hilton comes in, or if Red Roof Inn comes in, or if another fitness company comes in, by putting it in a national marketing company and leaving it somewhat ambiguous about what we want and seeing what somebody would be willing to bring into it, I think we open the possibilities up to a much wider area. And I don't think we can do that with a DDE director that's locally based. I think that takes a national reach, because you take a large corporation with a national reach, and they might be looking for properties of X number of square feet that's on a major road right next to the busiest intersection on that road for 15 miles. And when you put those type of criteria out there with a national marketing firm, they can match that up far better than any one of us can, because we don't have that kind of reach. But just sticking the total number of square feet and the possibility of being located right on the main drag there and next to, those are all pluses, I think, that could be done on with a national marketing company or somebody with a national reach. And other than myself going back directly to the mayor, which I've already talked to him once about this, but it was kind of, at that particular time, this was about a month ago, it was kind of, well, we're looking at a lot of things. And so it was left right there. So I'm not sure how much influence we can put on council, but I think we need to have some kind of a visioning session with council.
Seems that they've been looking at a lot of things for quite a while now.
Looking,
You know, they're still looking.
you know, you don't get to take the shirt home from the store by looking at it. You have to make a decision at some point and say, I'm gonna buy the blue one, boom, and you do it. So rather than sit on that corner of Ford Road and Merriman forever, somebody needs to give that situation a little bit of a push. And the same thing with the Kmart property. I don't want to see that thing sit there for another 10 years empty, because it's a waste. It's a waste of what we could do with the tax base. Potentially, if it ends up being, you know, a site plan with residential and commercial combined. You can look at an example of that on, I believe it's Plymouth Road and not Newburgh, I think it's Levan. No, it's the next one past it. Anyhow, there's several locations around where they've combined those two things, both in Dearborn and in Livonia. And I think I'd like to initiate a visioning session privately with council and see what we need to do to make that happen. Because those properties are gonna sit there forever. And the first thing I would ask of council, has anybody thought to go back to LA Fitness and see if they can sell this? Because LA Fitness right now is in 2 countries. They have 455 operations in 2 different countries. They have the scope and the reach to do, I'm guessing, whatever they want to do. The building that was proposed there and the site plan layout with eliminating driveways and having a central access, that would have been a beautiful accent to downtown Garden City. I don't think it's dead. I think if we were to go back to LA Fitness and sit down with them and tell them about all the benefits that they could gain by reimagining this project and coming back to the table. I hate to leave that on the table unanswered because, you know, the old adage, success comes in cans, not cannots. Nobody knows if anybody's gone back to LA Fitness. I've asked a question of 3 different council members and a former mayor. Nobody was able to answer that. And I think that's a big waste, and I think if nobody else is gonna do it, maybe we need to push for that. So how do we sit down and do a visioning session with city council? How do we initiate that? We've done it before, but it's been a while.
Well, it can come in a lot of different ways. It could either come as part of a larger planning process, or it could be its own confined visioning session that begins everything, too, you know. I don't want to talk too much because I got other planning commission.
Okay.
But it definitely could be done.
Diane?
But should we not ask, instead of asking council, shouldn't we be asking the DDA?
No.
Well, I would think what it was is if you, any kind of session that you're looking for direction, it probably should involve all the leadership. So at least the leadership to know what to move forward, how to move forward. So you could incorporate, you know, various different members of the DDA or the plan,
DDA and the
of the council.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's not that I would exclude them, it's that they don't have the reach that I think we need. I mean, there's fitness companies we don't even know about here because they don't have a presence currently in Michigan. There's all kinds of companies that we don't know about that are in other parts of the country that may be interested in expanding to the Midwest. I mean, we have a strong, stable city. We have a big piece of property there. We could potentially look at mixed zoning to incorporate multifamily and retail and potentially park. You know, I mean, that's a big piece of property there. There's a lot that could be done with that.
Right, and I totally agree, but maybe we have it, the DDA and the council, everyone together, because if council doesn't know, then DDA might have an answer that council may not know about.
But DDA by themselves, their reach is from, you know, Dawson to Harrison.
Right.
The reach is still Garden City. It's small.
Okay, let's, we're getting kind of away from the item here. We're supposed to be talking about master plan. Frank?
Well, I would like to build on your point, but segue back to the master plan in that I do wonder, rather than spending time and resources on redoing an entire plan, should we be studying how we should be working together, how other cities are doing it successfully? Do they have a DDA? Do they have other governing bodies? Do they have full-time employees? Kind of put it all out on the table to say, hey, what could we be doing? How might we grow the city in a more effective way?
Yeah, I'm sure your company has contacts with many of the cities in this area, and you could probably tell us if there are some successful cities in the area that are doing things differently than we are.
Yes, definitely. We have all over both southeast Michigan, but also the west side of Michigan. I mean, I have experience in Chicago and other areas, and we have planners that go down to Ohio too. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it that would modify and change I think that's how it is, how your different components, because you have the components as a matter of working together towards a common idea. And I know from what I've heard that the administration is attempting to readjust the administrative structure to have more economic development in-house. So that's one way. But then I think we could provide case studies. McKenna has a lot of different areas in which that collaboration between not only local resources, but also national resources, working with national areas of other experts to create a vision that is not just representative of what the people want, but then also the steps to do it. Those individual action steps, to get things done and accomplished. I think that's definitely something we can do.
As far as the Kmart site, I think we need to do our due diligence also, before we try to put it out to a national company to market it or do anything else for us. We need to do a density exercise, give them some parameters. You can't just say, we got this big lot and we wanna sell it, help us out. Maybe we need to tell them, listen, we're willing to go up to this size density, this many units, this height of building. Give them what we're willing to give them, to have them come to us. Garden City's
Well-
not exactly a destination spot. We gotta let these people know, listen, we're willing to go up to a 6-story building that'll house 60 people. I mean, we need to give them some parameters on the large end, so they know what they can come into.
And that can be accomplished with starting with, the way I'm thinking about it, is, starting with like a leadership visioning session where everybody gets in the same room, starts talking about what should be done, and then at the end of that, come up with certain steps. And one of those first steps I would be suggesting would be what would be the public input. So have some kind of public input session that would talk about those things, talk about the D word, talk about density, talk about traffic volume that would be generated and what the community will be acceptable to. But also look at the positives of it. Look at, ways that this development could address the needs of the city and the residents. Having alternative housing alternative housing for people that no longer want to have a half-acre lot that they gotta shovel snow and mow the lawn all the time, but they want to stay in Garden City. They want to go to Garden City churches. They want to stay here and see their grandkids in the schools. That kind of thing as well. Like what other houses, and also, right now, it's pretty tough for young families to get started right off on a single-family lot. So other housing alternatives for that. So it could be at least identify the topics and then see in what ways the redevelopment there could work as a component of turning it all the way back around to the master plan, and like how you feel like this would be just a separate component of like the first step, because going through this exercise could be the beginning of the master plan process. Maybe this is a first step that's separate from with this visioning session and that with then being the next larger step of amending the master plan. Amending the master plan and incorporating what comes out of this Kmart, downtown action plan, creating a downtown action plan first, and then amending the rest of the plan.
Yeah, I think that could be a subsection of our master plan.
Right, exactly. It
yes.
could be a subsection of the master plan. Yep.
Yeah, what we need to include in that is open for discussion, of course.
Right. And would be developed through the process.
Well, have we come to any conclusions about this, or?
If you like, what I can do is prepare a memo that just summarizes basically what we've talked about today in terms of starting out with some type of downtown Kmart site, or, redevelopment action plan, or redevelopment sessions. Doesn't have to be a whole plan. It can be just getting in together, talking in a room where McKenna can facilitate the meeting to guide the discussion. So to have the discussion, we would be the ones that would be absorbing the comments of the Planning Commission, of the DDA, of the council, and then we would formulate an action plan as to how the next steps to proceed. And then I can put that in a memo, and then the next steps in the memo being about proposing an amendment to the master plan that addresses the deficiencies. So
Okay.
and that could be a draft memo that eventually you would submit as a planning commission. You would submit that to council as saying, based on our 5-year review of the master plan and pressing issues of development in the city, these are the steps we think are appropriate.
Yes,
Maybe just to be really candid, the fact that we're talking about the DDA and the council and the planning commission, yet none of us seem to communicate, it just jumps out to me that how we interact as a governing volunteers and city officials, shouldn't we study that?
Yeah.
Should be looking
Shouldn't we
at
be
the
putting that in the
interaction.
memo that, in the spirit of improvement, how should the city be functioning to enable growth? Because I am assuming we're inhibiting it and we don't even know.
One thing I will say, just, you know, in a lot of our communities, one of the first things we have is someone from council sits on the planning commission. That's, you know, you have your, part of your legislative body, at least as a liaison. There may be, in some communities, they don't vote, but you have a liaison, and then at,
Well, we have a liaison, but they're not here.
right. So that would be the next step, is like that liaison be present. And then other things too happens at the village at city council, at the village councils I go to, at the township board meetings I go to. They on their agenda is like, oh, a report from the planning commission. Well, what did they do this week or this month? And what did they, but they also have all their board members' reports. It's not just receiving and filing your minutes as a component. It's actually something that gets presented and discussed at those other boards. Similarly, and then, but also, the same thing happens here. You know, any council items that are relevant to the planning commission, the council liaison can discuss. And then also, the DDA, a lot of other communities, their DDA membership reports to the planning commission, and the DDA chief reports to the council. Just so there's that limited, I mean, that initial communication, and that's just, you know, monthly. Not to mention all the other communication that happens on a daily basis between all the players in the leadership.
Yeah, as it is, there's very little communication.
Yeah. So I will include that in the memo as well.
Okay, so we'll table it for further discussion?
Yep. Next meeting, I'll have the memo for you that summarizes on it.
Okay, moving on then.
Do you want to make an official motion?
Should we
to
make that a
ta-
motion?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to table the master plan 5-year review pending Mr. Ortega's memo.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalidas?
Aye.
Commissioner Walls?
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull?
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg?
Aye.
Chairperson May?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, next order of business is zoning ordinance amendments. Discussion of revised amendment language regarding accessory buildings, lot coverage standards, and other potential ordinance amendments. Mr. Ortega.
Yes. So these amendments came about, partially from, well, actually not partially, majority of the building department and the building department, the building official, the building administrator, inspectors, on their day-to-day activities of inspecting sites, the issues they encounter, and the issues that come up with the zoning ordinance and how residents and property owners are developing their sites. So, and there's several different issues. The first of them are related to accessory buildings and structures. One of them was mainly related to the design and style of accessory structures, and that being the fact that a lot of some residents, or some residents and property owners tend to want to have a significant amount of their lot occupied by self-storage. Like, they have a lot of things, and so they want to have them on their property. It's understandable, however, and we do allow that because it's definitely, you know, as a property owners, they have items they need to store, and so they're allowed accessory structures. However, they tend to utilize the most cost-efficient way, but the cost-efficient way quickly deteriorates into literal deterioration of structures that negatively impact the neighbors. We get a lot of complaints from neighbors saying that, why does this property have a vinyl tent that's being used for year-round storage of just things, not even like a vehicle, not even like a recreational vehicle, like literally just outdoor storage of boxes and things. And that's the extreme. Obviously, there are some cases in which it doesn't get that bad, but on the extreme side of things, it can get pretty bad. And so it devolves into who deals with this. Does code enforcement have to go out and start writing tickets to people for garbage on their own property? It hasn't come to that, but it's been close. So, once again, that's the extreme problems. We'd like to just have the ordinance focus on improvements, changes to the language that will hopefully create more attractive sites and usable and functional sites without any kind of severe impact on property owners. So the first being just, number one, making sure that officially that all buildings are required to be with the building code. Believe it or not, some people will argue, oh, it doesn't say here that I have to comply with the building code. Why do I have to comply? We deal with them, but certain things like that even we come up with. But then also looking at specifics for materials. Once again, rather than allow for people to have long-time vinyl, those white vinyl storage buildings or pods or those things being permanent, just having a standard that says for permanent buildings that have walls and roofs, they need to be subscribed to the durable all-weather material, including wood, masonry, fiber cement, rigid plastic, or metal. And the use of plastic film is prohibited. Paragraph B, under paragraph 8, actually I talked with the building department. They did find that that first sentence is a little redundant because we already have paragraph A. So we're already thinking about changing that and just saying paragraph B would only start with the second sentence. Attached permanent accessory buildings for residential uses shall utilize the same material, color, and architectural style of the principal residential building. Because we have had applicants come in trying to attach a vinyl-sided building addition to an existing brick building in the front. And it's architecturally and aesthetically, it's just not attractive. It doesn't add to the value of the property and that sort of thing. And then there's other amendments, just like going back up on the same page, page 1, up to paragraph 5, is making sure that accessory structures, they make sure they abide by all the executed easements, such as with the DTE easements, making sure that the use of accessory structures, they can be used as part of a home occupation in compliance with the home occupation ordinance. And also, moving on to page 2, making sure that accessory structures do not exceed the height of the principal building on site. And then actually, one of the more important issues the building department wanted to address is to make sure that accessory structures have rat walls, basically, because we've had a lot of accessory structures that deteriorate quickly because they're not on a strong foundation, and then they end up being just havens for rodents. So at the bottom of page 2, paragraph 5, the foundation specifies the 4-inch thick concrete slabs. And then moving on to paragraph B on the second page, on the next page, also the other common alternative for accessory structures to have the pressure-treated wood as well. And then the final issue in the accessory structure section, specifying that shipping containers should not be permitted. This is something that sometimes has been promoted by companies that have used shipping containers. And the main issue with shipping containers is that, number one, technically they're under 200, some of them can be under 200 square feet, so they don't need to be on foundation. They're very heavy, so by the time you put them, if you don't put them on the right foundation, it's going to degrade the property, cause more stormwater runoff issues. And then B, they're unsafe because a person that's trapped, that gets inside a shipping container can't get out. And shipping containers being all corrugated metal, they very, very quickly turn into heat boxes in the summer. So there's just no real, I've worked in other communities, we've attempted to write ordinances to permit them, but it gets very elaborate, and it's easier just to prohibit them because there are more economical existing storage options. You can go to Lowe's and Home Depot, so.
Is this only in the residential district or the commercial district
This would be commercial district as well.
shipping containers?
Yeah. Right now, once again, sorry, I should back up for a second. This is the first draft of this language. This is our first attempt. For those new members and for everyone, this can be changed. This is just a first draft as to what you'd like to see. This can be changed. If you feel it needs allowed in other areas, it could be. So. But yes, as proposed right now, this would, it's not specific to any district, and it would just say specifically in paragraph 4, D4, excuse me, on page 3, that shipping containers shall not be permitted in any district right now. So. Are there any questions on those? Yeah.
I have a question on subsection C, number 3.
Okay.
The detached accessories and not occupy 50% of the required rear yard, the total accessory building should not exceed 1,200 square feet. So the question I have with this is, 1,200 square foot rule, we have a 30%, you can't build on 30% of your lot, more than 30% of the city of Garden City. That's where we're at. So what benefit do our residents have that own a half acre, an acre, or an acre and a half, except for mow more grass, if they can't build a bigger accessory building?
So this is actually something that was recently increased. Before, it was less than this. I think it was 800 square foot that people could be permitted. We did, back then when we looked at this, we did acknowledge that some of the larger lots on site should be allowed to be more square footage. But then mainly, the question at that time, and now, for you to let us know what you'd like to see is, in single-family districts, the primary function of the site really is for single-family homes and for residing and for the homes themselves. And the idea, I've had a lot of people that try to come in and they don't even want to build a home, they just want to build a pole barn because they want to store their things. They want to store their, RV material, RVs and snowmobiles and everything, which I understand it's fine, needs to be going somewhere. But the idea at that time was that if you have anything more than 1,200 square foot of, at that time, the language was, I think we were saying it would be okay. 1,200 seemed the max in terms of that. So it can be revised if need be because the 30% standard is still in effect. So looking at the different sizes of lots, yeah, we could look at modifying that to increase it if we wanted to, but then it's a matter of, does someone have an 800 square foot home and 4,000 square feet of storage on the back?
And to me, how is that any different than the homes that we're letting built now that are 3,000 square feet between two ranches?
It isn't, yeah, it's,
Giant homes going up in Garden City that are beautiful, but they don't belong. Not in the areas they're being put in. They're huge, they're out of place, they're over 21 feet tall. The basements are 6 feet out of the ground. And yet, we're gonna restrict our current residents that have lived there their whole life that might wanna do something different to this. Why can't we just go to a 30%? Once you hit 30% of your lot, that's it. I mean, you're not gonna have an overabundance of people coming in here wanting to build a 100 by 60 pole barn. Most people don't have the money to build that. And we don't have an overabundance of half acre or 1 acre lots. But I
Well,
think
there's quite a
we should
few
have a-
half-acre lots, so you've got 20,000 square foot. You could put a pretty big accessory building on that would turn into a commercial enterprise, basically.
Maybe not. Maybe the people wanna store their stuff in it, snowmobiles, boats, whatever, so they're not out in the yard. I mean, people buy these half acre lots and these oversized lots for certain reasons.
A friend up north just built a 60 by 100 foot pole barn. He's got 35 acres. It cost him $69,000.
I don't think we're gonna have an overabundance of this, but I think we're handcuffing our current residents.
so I'm just doing
The
some
rule
math.
for 21 feet used to be no longer than the peak of your current existing house. There's three different building codes. 10 feet between the ridge and the eave, 21 feet total, or no higher than the current, your current house. So there's actually three different building codes for the 21 feet.
Well, this would clear up the variation in building codes, wouldn't it?
I'm sorry, the building codes you were mentioning again, it was the
Well, as far
10-foot
as building
sidewall,
height is
right?
concerned.
There's 3 different codes, at least there was.
There was, and I think there still are, that's the thing.
There's like 10 feet between the ridge and the eave,
Yeah,
no higher than 21 feet, and no higher than the existing structure, which was the
Yep.
house.
so those are existing standards, and those are still in here, they aren't touched right now, but you're right, right now, that's what it is. And it's not proposed to change. But that's not to say we can't look at that. But yeah, right now, that's the way, those are the other restrictions on there, yeah.
So somebody on this could have a 1,200 square foot garage and a 1,200 square foot accessory building?
Well, no, because the,
Attached.
attached.
Somebody on
When it comes to,
a big
gar-
lot could build a 1,200 square foot attached garage to their home, and then put a 1,200 square foot detached accessory building. And it would be within compliance. But we have an ordinance against them just building a 2,400 square foot accessory building.
there is a requirement with regards to attached accessory structures. I believe it's not supposed to exceed,
The square footage of the home.
right.
You're asking about C3, which he's not changing. But this is
Which I think it
ordinance.
should, I think it should be changed,
This is the ordinance as it is.
as it is.
Yeah, that's existing.
I'm proposing we change it.
So, and then also, you're right, so the floor area of a garage attached to a principal residence shall not exceed 50% of the floor area of the residence or 720 square foot. So, and technically, it doesn't say whichever is less. So in theory, if someone had a 2,400 square foot house, they go to a 1,200 square foot attached garage unless we change this to say, or whichever is less.
I just don't feel we should, we're gonna get extra tax revenue from whatever anybody puts on their property, as long as within building codes, it looks decent. We can't assume what somebody's gonna do with their property. That's not on our part to do, we gotta make sure it's within codes. I just
Well,
think
we
we're
can,
handicapped.
actually, we can determine what they can do with their property. That's what zoning's all about.
Oh, I get it, but you're handcuffing the residents, and I believe
Well,
it's-
that's part of the deal, though. If you want to build a big pole barn on your property, you probably should go to a more rural area.
So then we should just take the half-acre lots and put a street down there and build more houses and get more revenue.
Well,
Because there's absolutely no benefit on owning that half-acre lot, except.
there's a benefit to the
grass.
people who own them because they bought them in the first place and they decided they wanted a half-acre lot.
I like mine.
So,
So just doing the math on some of the lots that are half acre, I found one that was 0.53 acres. 30% lot coverage means they could have 6,900 square foot of lot coverage, of building. So if we only stuck with lot coverage standards, that means these half acre lots could have 6,900 square feet of building.
Which would we allow them, we, as a planning commission, if they came to us on a half-acre lot, 4,000 square foot house, we would let them build it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, if some of these houses, yeah, when they're coming in, they're getting that big. But right now, but in the current ordinance, they're restricted to 1,200.
the only restriction is setbacks
Right,
and height.
yep. So when
As long as they stay within those restrictions, they're legal.
in the building envelope, yep.
Mr. Steenberg?
Concerning the accessory buildings, you were talking about the plastic
Yep.
tent type stuff. In July of 13, so far as I know, unless it's been changed again, the prohibition, it said that the 400 square foot buildings required a rat wall, 400 feet and above. And at that particular time on July of 13, it was zoned that all buildings required a rat wall, permanent structures.
Is that did you have that from a zoning ordinance section, or?
This was a memorandum to that, yeah. zoning text amendment, 13-016.
I do believe a shed of under 200 square feet doesn't even require a building permit.
Correct, yeah. The building code only
No, but
requires,
Are they still required a rat wall? Because I had when I bought my house, there was a small playhouse on the property that was about 6 by 8. And the city required a rat wall because it was on a slab without a rat wall.
so I believe, from what if I recall correctly, when the building officials were letting me know, is that, yes, the building code does require a rat wall, so any building greater than 200 square foot does require a rat wall. This standard is supposed to address those accessory structures less than 200 square feet because, based on the current building official's interpretation of the building code and the current codes of the city, technically, there isn't it's not a requirement for a rat wall right now.
And they still
So
develop
this would be-
problems with rodent infestation if they
Right.
don't have one.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea here is to codify it, to put into, it was policy, they'd like to put it into the zoning ordinance so they have something to hang their hat on officially in this ordinance.
So with that, wouldn't it be easier just to require all accessory buildings to have a permit?
They are required to,
200 square foot and under?
so any accessory structure less than 200 square feet has to get a zoning permit because the building code doesn't apply. So the only thing that applies are the zoning standards. So that's why they'd like to put this standard in the zoning ordinance, because while it was passed policy to require rat walls for accessory structures less than 200 square foot, they officially, it needs to be in an ordinance somewhere. So because they don't require a permit from the building official, they do require a zoning permit. So the zoning permit typically only requires the locational standards, meaning it has to be 3 foot away from the rear lot line, 3 foot away from the side, 10 feet away from any habitable structure. And that's all, when it comes to accessory structures, those sheds, that's the only thing we can require of them currently. With these amendments, it would be official in the zoning ordinance that they would officially have to build a rat wall for structures less than 200 square foot, and they would have to have the material standards, meaning they couldn't just put up like a vinyl shed.
How do you enforce that with no permit?
No, they required to get a zoning permit. So
Who inspects it though,
the building official.
for the zoning permit?
Yeah. And, if you wanted to, that's just the way the organization of it works right now. If you wanted to hand it off to the zoning administrator or the acting zoning administrator, whomever, yeah, we could do that. Or some of the other inspectors we have. But yeah, that's who currently does it right now. And actually, when it comes to the zoning permit, an applicant, a property owner comes in, they say, I want to build a shed, they submit us the plan, all they do is submit us the plot plan and what they're proposing, and then we approve it, and then they build it. I don't believe there might be a final inspection, I don't know, I'm not involved with it, but we just, other than making sure it's in the right location, we can't require anything else from them. So these amendments are supposed to officially put in the rat wall requirement and officially put in the material standards.
When we do that, then we need to update or figure out how to communicate to update the building department's website. When a lot of people go on there and they look at it, they're gonna look and see that they're not required a building permit for a 200 square foot shed or under. They're just gonna build it.
Right. So that's exactly right. And so the website should be currently stating that they required a zoning permit. If not, that can be corrected. And then if these were to be, if these were to be adopted eventually, then we would adjust the zoning, the website to state that. And then all property owners that are, when they come in, we'll let them, they'll be informed of the requirements.
Okay, can we move along now?
Yep. The bottom of page 3 just had some changes to paragraph 2, waste dumpsters. Right now, they were just permitted as 180 days. Seems a little excessive. I had some additional discussions with the building official based on this original text, and they would like to change this further for this to, they're okay with the 30 days initially, but then also, they let me know that, you know, a dumpster also has to be there it can be there for definitely more than 30 days. And so the idea would be, say, a dumpster shall also be permitted for the extent of an open building permit or approved scope of work by the building official. Mainly making sure that dumpsters can remain for the extent of a construction project. But we wanted to put the 30 days in there because when they don't have a building permit, like you don't need a building permit to do demo. So if someone wanted to like rip out carpeting, rip out drop ceiling, that sort of thing, they don't need a building permit for that. So other sections wouldn't apply. So this would make sure to limit that to 30 days until they get a building permit. Then once they have the building permit, the dumpster can say that for. Similarly, one thing I'll have to provide revisions to is under the portable storage units. Right now, it says 15 working days per 6-month period and 1 unit per property. That's really reflective of when portable storage units are used for moving. When someone has a pod dropped off, people put their items in and they move away. When it comes to construction projects, homeowners also need a pod unit to store their items. Like if they're renovating their house, they need a pod unit so that put their items in the pod for the extent of the reconstruction, and then when the renovations are done, they can move their items back in. So a similar section is going to be added here to allow for pods to be utilized for the extent of a building permit. So that has to be revised. To let you know, when I drafted this language, and then I gave it to the building officials so they could let me know what other changes they want, because I think it's very important for them to provide their comments and their insight, because they live with it day to day, and they want to know they also don't want any ordinances that are going to be infeasible to enforce, you know. And then on page 4, top of that is really about, it's just about having some kind of standards for tents. The idea that people need to have tents for, you know, graduations, baby showers, that sort of thing. So it's just find a way. And then based on, you know, talking to applicants, talking to different people. Right now, they don't even need a permit. This wouldn't require them to have a permit. Basically, it's just saying that the extent to which they are allowed to have tents. And so that way no one can be, if we do get this would be enforced through complaints. So if someone complains that there's a tent out for an extended amount of time, we let the property owner know. Based on this, they can have a permit, have a tent for 5 days for 3 events in a 12-month period. So we figured, you know, typically in the summer, graduation party, I don't know, 4th of July, and then a wedding shower or something. So three seemed enough.
I'm sorry, we just might want to have a better definition. I mean, I've seen like the PVC pop together with the,
Yep.
is that a tent?
Right. Oh, I see.
You might want to just make sure we really define, and I don't even know if I have a strong opinion on that, but we should be clear.
A lot of people make their own, you know,
Yeah.
for a private party, they put it over the driveway or something, and
Well, I know I've got someone in my area who has like a permanent PVC thing, and
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
care, but, you know, is that considered a tent, or is that considered a
well,
temporary? Yeah, exactly, a camper cover.
Exactly. So, and yeah, thanks. That's a good word, canopy, cover. Yeah, when it comes to tents, in our head, the idea of an event tent, they actually have specific codes for that in terms of the safety of it, in terms of the load and everything, because of the wind and rain and everything. And when you hire a company to come out, they'll install it correctly, because they put everything in the ground and it's properly installed. Those canopy covers are definitely the kind of things that we were thinking of that are just, they're not safe, because in terms of they all vary in the type of securing to the ground. Sometimes you go get it at Menards and then it just says weigh it down with like a weight, and sometimes it works for days, but if it's windy, it's not. So that's a good point. We'll add a definition for tent and specify, like the pop-up tailgate tents, you know, having those as some kind of, we'll massage this language to like allow that. And once again, this isn't anything, we're not envisioning, because we don't want to have to issue permits for this. It's more about if someone has one of these tents out and it's there all summer and they're just hanging out underneath, then at some point they need to make sure they're not negatively impacting their neighbors with their canopy or their summers long event. So moving on. So that's that. And then Amendment 2 is related to impervious surface. And actually, this one is obviously going to be a little bit more complicated, because basically what the issue with this is involving some of our larger homes, sometimes even some of our smaller homes. They want to have more and more parking, whether it's, that they typically it's because they're just more extended family, or they have teenagers that are moving back from college, or whatever the case may be. They tend to then pave more and more of their front yard, and they're not permitted. They're not intended to do that, because the intent of the front yard is supposed to be the public open space and the green space for this area. And similarly, though, these, in modern times, in current situations, we do have extended family need to park somewhere. So the idea would be, in these standards, is to have that driveway in which you have the driveway function for the garage, whether it's a single car garage, dual car garage, have them park there. But then mainly too, if they need more parking, to put it in the rear and put it in the back. Right now, this isn't proposing any hard surface per se, but then the other issue that this is attempting to talk about is stormwater and the flooding that happens in the city. And the fact that if, in some of our smaller lots, and by the time if they got 4 cars and then they got 1,200 square feet or more of accessory structure on a 40 by 110 lot, the entire surface is paved. And so that negatively impacts the neighbors, because then it floods their property. So it's a tough question, because there's two very extremes. One, and I put this in here intentionally just so we can have the discussion, this whole idea of impervious surface. Some communities, they just don't want to deal with the intricacies of trying to do it, and they say maximum amount of buildings and hard surface is X square footage, and you can't have any more, because they just have too many flooding issues in those communities, and they're trying to deal with it that way. Other communities try and meet a little bit more in the middle, have some alternative, like allow for impervious surface. So the functionality of them can be kind of suspect, but there are also good products out there to allow that for rainwater to go through them and still provide enough structure so that a car or RV or anything isn't going to cause ruts and cause other problems on a yard. Those, though, tend to cost more than concrete or asphalt. So that's why a lot of people don't want to do it. So a lot of times people want to do gravel, but gravel requires maintenance, and it's a possibility. And I could see that as a possibility in the rear. There's some debate about whether that's permeable or not. Some people think it is because it's not a solid surface, but you talk to some engineers, and the coefficient number just doesn't allow water to infill, go through the gravel fast enough, because any good rain and then water is going off gravel just as fast as it's going off concrete. So these standards, beginning on page 5 with paragraph A, driveways, we're moving language that right now for some reason is in the schedule of regulations and putting it in the parking standards section. So having parking and driveway standards in one place so it's easy to see. And then attempting to specify that for lots with no garages or with detached garages in the rear yard, driveways in the front yard shall not be greater than 12 feet in width, but then going on and changing that.
So is this 12 feet for the garage in the back always been in there, or is that something new we're trying to add?
That's something new trying to add, is just a thought. Later on, there does go into more allowances for saying, because we have some, like our corner lots, where the garage is, it's only 10 or 15 feet away from the side street. And it's a 2-car garage, So it makes no sense to limit that to 12 feet. So there's a language in here that says, no, they can have it wide enough, because the driveway should be wide enough to allow for people to enter in the garage. So I believe the standard I was saying is the width of the garage door plus an additional 4 feet, so people also have a landing area when they get out. So these can be tweaked if it's not clear. But yeah, the intent is to try and make sure the garage functions well, but not creating excessively wide.
So when we go into a snow emergency, we want our residents to get off the street, we're gonna restrict the amount of concrete they can have now with less places to park than if we just left it the way it was.
Well, the idea would be that they would have more places to park in the rear. Now, I know it's not feasible for some lots, because between the garage and the house, at most you have 12 feet. You got 3 feet on one side, 9 feet on the other, if you're lucky, and if you can get past there. So the idea would be, in those cases, like on the east side of town, the 40-foot wide lots, they can't get past, and they don't even have
We
driveways.
have a 12-foot driveway anyway.
But they don't even have a driveway. They just have the house.
My question is though, now, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. My house on a 60-foot lot, I got a 17.5-foot wide driveway that leads back to my detached garage in the back.
Yeah, so,
Why would we limit me if I was gonna build on the property I own next door to a 12-foot wide driveway and have a 5-foot patch of grass?
right.
Then I'm restricted to one car in that driveway instead of two.
Well, in theory, if you had meaning the 30-foot front yard setback, you could still fit 2 cars back to back in there. But then also, when it comes to that width, the 12-foot was the idea. Maybe that does need to be changed. Maybe they'd be widened to 15 or 17. But the issue we're facing is a lot of people then, they will widen the width of the driveway so that's in front of the house. So originally, like, we've got some houses down on, I want to say Pardo, I could be wrong, but houses where they start with the one driveway, and then they get a 2-car garage, then they widen it, then they put a circular driveway in, and then they just paved over everything else. So then they got people parking perpendicularly in front of the house.
Yeah, I had a question about the parking. Does this standard say that you're prohibited from parking on a circular driveway that goes in front of your house?
Right now, it says that. That was an extreme, going to one extreme. If you feel that's too extreme, we can eliminate that. If you think, but the idea would be like, then if people are utilizing the circular driveway in front for cars, then you're gonna have 1, 2, depending on the width of the house, at least 4 or 5 cars in the circular driveway.
Yeah, depending on the
Right.
size of the lot.
And it's a matter of if you feel that's fine, then we can eliminate that, or?
Well,
Well, there's an awful lot of it in Garden City.
I think maybe the size of the driveways should be limited to only allow one lane of parking on them. But if you're going to have a driveway, it seems that you should be able to park on it.
Absolutely, yeah. And so the idea would be they can park in the driveway in the front, obviously, in the front yard, because there's no restriction on parking on the driveway in front of the garage, because you got to be able to
No,
park there. But then in the circular
This section
driveway,
here prohibits parking in front of the house, though,
right,
which is where the circular drive would be.
right. So if you think that's too excessive, yeah, we can get rid of that sentence. It was just
I'd
one.
like to get rid of.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of circular driveways in Garden City. And the idea that you built that and now you can't park on it is kind of crazy.
It's a little, yes,
I
right.
just have a related question. So what about folks who've already done this? So they've extended their driveway, like a lot of the ranches, the brick ranches, they'll have a sidewalk. They've now taken that sidewalk and just filled it in.
Right.
So what are we saying to the folks who've already done this?
So as a zoning ordinance, this would be applicable to all new development going forward. So when someone comes in and they say they want to widen their driveway, or they want to put in a new driveway, or they want to pave in front of their house, they would have to apply by this standard. Any existing ones now are just called legally non-conforming, and they can just continue as is.
So the ordinance officer's not gonna give them a hard time?
No,
No, it would be an existing non-conforming.
exactly, yeah.
So if I have a 17-foot wide driveway, I can replace it with a 17-foot wide driveway.
Right, yeah. You just couldn't make it 18. And unless we change this number right now, unless we change the number right now from 12 to something else.
I think 12 is redundant, too small. I mean, that's just my personal feeling. I mean, I don't know what I would do with that other 5 feet on the side of my yard except for mow it. Nobody wants to do it. It butts up to my neighbor's driveway.
Well, from the front of the house back towards the garage, you're allowed to widen it to the width of your garage opening, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's just the part in front of the house that's restricted to 12 feet in this
Correct.
case?
Correct. And one other thing, I didn't have the opportunity yet to get it back from my colleagues at McKenna, is the idea here with this amendment would also to have graphics showing how the width of the garage driveway would be and where it would be permitted. Because these graphics are handed out with the building permits, with the flat work permit that the city issues. We give those handouts to the applicants to let them know this is where the driveway can be. And so those graphics would be created so they could be put in the ordinance, so it's very obvious what could and couldn't be constructed.
So would you be allowed to start widening that drive at the front line of your house?
Well, so right now, the way this is written, it'd be 12 feet in width. Now, obviously, I know we
to
can
the
change
front.
that. Right. So basically, you're going to have your concrete driveway approach that, that's in the right-of-way, then you'll have the sidewalk, and then there should be the property line. So beginning at that, in theory, it could either taper down or stay the same width as the driveway at the garage. So if you have a two-car garage, you'd have the width of the garage plus an extra 4 feet, and that would be your driveway width going from the property line to the two-car garage.
From the front of the house to the two-car garage, or from the back?
From the property line to your garage door, the width of the driveway would be equal to your garage door plus an additional, I think it's 4 feet, right? Didn't I require
That's only
4?
for an attached garage, correct? That's not for a detached in the back.
Correct, right, not, like, if you had a detached,
That's
right,
why I
yeah.
think we need to amend this, because you're gonna have people with a 12-foot driveway, they're gonna hit the front of their house, they're gonna put gravel on both sides so they can still park on it, so they can get their fence.
Well, that's the other thing, is in here, you would not be allowed in the front yard to use gravel for parking. You can only park in the paved driveway in the front yard. So the rear yard, once you get past the front line, and the side yard as well, so once you get past the front line of the house, then you could park there, and then if you wanted to use other materials, I think right now we're not requiring other materials, so then they could park on a gravel surface in the rear, or the side.
The purpose for changing this was?
Be-
Why don't we just leave it alone and just let?
Because we have a lot of people,
Have you driven down John Hawk?
Thank you.
I
West
live on
of,
John Hawk.
just west of Middleville?
I knew it was
I
a,
live on John Hawk, just west of Benoni.
Well, there's a house just west of Middlebelt on John Hawk that must park 15 cars in the front yard.
But I'm just saying, we're gonna change an ordinance for one house?
it's not just there, it's everywhere.
It's,
And we constantly, the building department constantly has
Yeah.
people coming in attempting to pave in front of their home to park.
so maybe the ordinance should be you can't pave in front of your home.
It,
Depending on
it,
how wide your driveway is.
so that's the thing, it could be that if we want to look at those different alternatives, it could be, but then the idea is if they're, once again, if you have an 800 square foot home, people will start saying, oh, well, this isn't in front of what about the 20 feet between my side lot line and my garage, my house? Can I pave that too and just park there and have 2 driveway curb cuts? Then, you know, the rest of the house, the rest of the 60-foot wide lot is paved, and the 25 feet of the width of your house is the only stretch of grass that isn't. The driveway is in the front yard is intended to have access to the garage and to park, because, you know, you need to park in the driveway. So, but the amount, like I said, it's a difficult question because we're just trying to make sure that in the front yard, pavement isn't excessive. And so the easiest way to control that is by saying a driveway can either just lead to the garage and that's it, with a little bit extra, or a certain width of a driveway leading to the rear where your other parking is, your rear detached rear garage or something like that. And if 12 feet is too short, too narrow, we can change that if you feel it's too
There's a
short.
house on
But
Box Street just west of Middlebelt. They blacktopped their whole front of their property. Their driveway and everything in front of their house is just,
Which they probably didn't even have a permit for. So we're only really talking about people who are gonna come in, take the time to pull the permit and try to do it legal.
And then also, then when ordinance enforcement gets those complaints, technically,
have
they should
something
be.
to hang their hat on.
Exactly, and they should be able to tell these people, you got to rip it out.
Can I make a suggestion? I'm kind of with you. Can we just simplify it?
Yeah, that's,
Because it does feel like it's kind of complicated. Can we just kind of
Yeah.
boil it down to what we're really worried about?
so I definitely think the graphics are going to help explain it, and then, so utilizing those, we'll try and find a way to simplify it. But just in terms of your opinions, in terms of driveway width,
Well,
are we on the right approach?
if you have a house that's set back just 30 feet, and you have an attached garage, you don't really have room to stack two cars there without being on the sidewalk. So they have to be side by side. So, I mean, they have, when they paved my street, they gave people the option of having an extra wide approach. And those people that had that problem put in a wider approach and can now park two cars side by side in front of their garage.
So maybe that's a way to do it, more simplified, saying lots shall be permitted to park two vehicles in their front, and within the front yard driveway, and then whether that's tandem or whether that's next door, next to each other, they can. And so like if it's, so that way if it's 40 foot wide and then it's wide enough, and then we would just say that that extra space, the space needed to park them next to each other just can't be in front of the house. Is that an
Yeah,
issue
they
that
just can't
people?
Or we could just say that it's
I opted
2
for
feet or
what
4
you're
feet
saying,
larger than the
side by
garage door.
side.
Yeah.
But it-
Right,
Simplify
but,
it that way, just say,
It's
if
still
you got a
beside.
detached garage, your driveway cannot exceed 4 foot the width of the garage door. Whether it's attached, detached,
What if you got two garages?
oh, but you think that would work?
I have,
Address the idea of two?
my garage goes lengthwise down my lot 38 feet. I have a 2.5 car door and a 1 car door. My sidewalk is 18 feet from my garage door.
Right.
That's my parking. There's
So
no
by this-
parking in the front of my
Right.
house because there's ditches.
Right.
The street's only 22 feet wide. You can't put a car on either side of the road and go down Hennepin.
Yeah.
It won't happen. So if I'm only allowed, then I won't have enough room for me and my kids to park.
that's why I think we're restricting the residents too much on this parking issue.
I mean, my stuff's been done since '95, so I imagine I would be grandfathered in, but I would hope.
Yeah.
But that is an issue that I noticed, like I said, on the corner lots, and like when the garage just can't be that 30 feet because it's on a side. Are you on a corner?
Yes.
Yeah, so those on the corner, if you're closer than 30 feet to the street, then yeah, it definitely should be allowed to be wider because you don't have that depth. Like you mentioned, Fred, you don't have the depth to do it.
There should be at least enough space to be able to park two cars on your
Right.
pavement, whether it's side by side or one in front of the other. When you go past the front of your house, then I think you should be able to open up the width of your
Absolutely.
driveway.
Absolutely, yep.
I just got a question, there's probably about 85–90% of lots are built on in Garden City now, I'm assuming.
Yeah, probably.
So we're gonna change the code for 10%? Because everybody's got it now.
No,
Well, people are
You're-
still paving.
the issue is that people keep coming in paving more and more and more and more. They want to pave the whole front yard of their house.
Yeah.
It's getting excessive, and it's causing flooding issues. because it's just sheet flow of water, and if it's not pitched the right way, that sheet flow of water is going not to the street, it's going into the houses of adjacent property. So there needs to be, now, they're not supposed to be that way. Everything is supposed to be designed so that no water is supposed to come off of any property greater than the agricultural rate. So if something's higher, they're supposed to put swales or something on the side property lines, and it's supposed to be pitched in such a way as so it goes towards the driveway and then the street, away from your neighbors. But the problem is, people keep paving more and more, and then if they aren't allowing more pavement in front of the house, greatly anticipates the idea that paving is going to result in flooding the neighbors, because it's just not done the right way.
Diane?
But I do agree, I'm sorry.
Can we just make an ordinance, no paving in front of your house?
It does say
Now,
that.
You know, you have to have grass and all that. I mean,
Yep.
you cannot pave your entire front yard.
Yeah, it does say that, but then the issue is the attempt here is trying to clarify that the driveway widths can't be extended to the point that it comes in front of your house and goes to the other side. So I think, I got a lot of good direction from you guys. Like, number one, simplify it. Allow for 2 cars to park in the front in some configuration. Make sure to eliminate the no parking in the circular drive so people can park in their circular drive. And that sort of thing. So I won't take that, but the idea of and just make sure that it's clear and simple, that there's no pavement in front of the house. And I think the graphics will help that.
Except for a circular drive.
Exactly, right, yeah, that's,
To put a circular drive in, what's the difference at that point if they go 7 feet over in front of their house?
well, once again, that's
Then it
how it
becomes a parking
happens.
lot.
Right, that's what
So
happens.
does a circular drive if we allow them to park on it?
Well, they can't use it if they're going to park on it, so it kind of defeats the purpose of the circular drive, I think. Unless you're having a party or something, then people come in.
But, for example, some of the issues we're facing is the way it's written, and hopefully it was trying to be clear, make it simpler. When people have circular drive, it's supposed to be circular, and there's supposed to be green space between the lower edge of the circular drive and the front lot line. The problem is, first thing is, when they go out there, then they pave that, and then they want to pave, because people park, and actually one of the things is because people are parking in the circular drive, they want to walk right from the circular drive right to the house directly. So everything in front of the circular drive gets paved, and then everything is paved. So that's the problem, is and then it floods, because I'm relatively sure that's flooding the property to the east. So I will take this and attempt to make,
Okay.
like I said, make it simpler, because reword it, and then,
Yeah, we'll try to simplify
Address your
that a little bit
concerns.
and
yep.
clear up some of these issues.
And really, that's the end of it, that's the main, because then the rest of these ordinances are really just the elimination of the existing language and the schedule of regs. So those are the main things.
You'll bring that back to us then after
Yep,
you...
yeah,
Okay.
because it's definitely not ready for public consideration.
All right, moving on. Next item is election of officers. We have nominations for, we can start with chairman. There are nominations for the chair.
I nominate you, Fred, for chair.
Second.
Okay, I accept. Other nominations for chair? You want to vote on them separately?
Yeah, just in case, there's multiple candidates for any position, let's just do them all separate, so we'll just do
Okay.
one at a time.
Take the roll, we only have one candidate.
Commissioner Kalidas?
Aye.
Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Walls?
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull?
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg?
Aye.
Chairperson May?
Aye. Next is vice chair.
I nominate Mike.
Second.
I accept.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Kalidas?
Aye.
Commissioner Walls?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull?
Aye.
Mr. Steenberg?
Aye.
Chairperson May?
Aye. And nomination for secretary.
I'll nominate Diane.
I'll second that.
Accept.
Second.
Other nominations for secretary? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Walls?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Commissioner Kalidas?
Aye.
Commissioner Turnbull?
Aye.
Mr. Steenberg?
Aye.
Chairperson May?
Aye. Okay, moving on. Commissioners' comments on planning and zoning matters. Diane, do you have anything?
Not tonight.
Eric?
Not tonight.
Mike?
Not tonight, thank you.
Frank?
No, thank you.
Kelly? Eric? Brian? Do you have anything else?
Can I embarrass you for a minute? I just wanted to extend my thanks on behalf of the city for Commissioner Turnbull. This is his last meeting with us. So I've only been here 6 years, so I had to do a little digging. So 2010, is that correct?
Wow.
So, so I just wanted to extend my thanks on behalf of the city for your 13-plus years of service. I know this board sometimes has to make a lot of tough decisions. It's hard when you get applicants who think they should just be allowed to do whatever they want, and, you know, they single you guys out as being the reason that they can't do what they want. But, you know, we appreciate all the work that this board does, looking at things objectively, you know, and making the informed decision. So just congratulations, and, you know, sad to see you go, but thanks for your years of service to the city.
And I'd also like to thank you, Eric. You've been a valued member of the commission, and we'll be sorry to see you leaving, but
Well, thank you, Fred.
I
Was it something we said?
many times.
Today, yeah.
Okay. Brian, did you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Nope, nothing at this
Very
time.
Okay. Next regular Planning Commission meeting is Thursday, January 11th, 2024. So with that, I'll call the meeting adjourned. Everyone have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
Could you show me his absent excuse for the 11th? I'll be in Bahamas.
Oh, well, good for you.